Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I am Sarah, doing the intro for the first time. Probably shouldn't call that out.
And the last time.
And the last time. And that's Helen.
I'm Helen. Hi.
And we've got quite a lot to talk about today, Helen. We have a full list on the docket, but I think before we get into any soccer, we need to talk about Crashland.
Oh my God, I was so hoping you were going to say that.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be number one on the list.
Can I ask, first of all, what part of your day did you hear about it? Because I woke up to the news, because obviously of time difference. Did you hear, like, last night? Or, like, when were you...
To be honest, I'm really desperately trying to remember if I saw it last night before I went to bed or woke up to it. And I don't know.
It just woke me up, like, the quickest I've ever woken up. I was like, what the hell? Oh my God, Crashland's holding a baby. Oh my God, reading it at the speed of light. Oh my God, it's their baby. And it was just the best moment ever, ever, ever.
It's really cute. And I actually haven't read the full post. Ashlyn Harris posted something really long, and it looked really, like, heartfelt and sweet. And I'm excited to go read it.
On that note, when I read the little blurb underneath the photograph from Ashlyn and Ali, it's really, like, heartfelt and really heartwarming because, and I don't think they realise the importance of what, or the message they're sending in 2021 as, like, a young woman who's married to a woman and, like, wanting to have children, obviously at some point in the future. It's, like, just really amazing and heartwarming to know that it's possible and to see that there's, like, a way to make it happen. And especially, I think it was only in Ashlyn's post, she says about how difficult it is to adopt, and that's been our experience as well, that it's a really difficult process for loads of different reasons. And I just really think it's amazing and lovely that people talk about that stuff, and that people at that level of fame and notoriety are so open about their personal lives to be like, it's really difficult to adopt, and one day we're going to talk about how difficult it's been, because I think that that's really helpful to people like me. And so, yeah, I just want to put that out there.
I love that. And it also gave us maybe some insight into why neither of them are at U.S. Women's National Team Camp for the She Believes Cup. Yeah.
You mentioned that, and I was like, I'd not connected those dots, but surely that's got something to do with it. I feel really overjoyed. And sort of in other LGBT news that I'm just kind of throwing in there now, Pernille Harder and Magdalena Eriksson, as part of, like, Valentine's Day, did a tweet yesterday, and they opened up their DMs to anybody struggling with LGBT related issues, like maybe coming out or finding it really difficult. And honestly, it just brings a tear to my eye, because, like, bloody buggering hell, I could have done with that in 2008 when it was like I was in my late teens, and I was, like, kind of going through this confusing time, and I was, like, obviously very fortunate, but with family that completely loved me and were really, like, welcoming of it and stuff. But I know how difficult it has been for some of my friends and some people that I'm really close to. So to have these two icons of women's football, the captain of Chelsea, for God's sake, opening her DMs for you to message her and talk about how you feel is both groundbreaking and, like, heartwarming in equal measure.
Honestly, I'm so happy you mentioned that. I had forgotten about it, but I saw that too, and I was just like, this is absolutely incredible.
Guys, just to remind you all, there are some opportunities within the Women's Soccer Show. To be honest with you, we still haven't contacted everybody that's got back to us so far. But if you could fill in the form and let us know if you want to get involved. There is a paid position, guys. There is a paid position available for an editor role. We will be looking for people that have done editing of sound before. And it will take about 1 to 2 hours a week. And yeah, it'll be kind of like a part-time paid little job. So reach out to us. Let us know if you'd like to be involved. We'd love you to be involved. Yeah. So over in the WSL, it's been a long week of games with lots of ups and downs, both on and off the pitch. I did love how much they were spaced out because we could watch all of them, right? It was
really wonderful.
Over here in the UK, there was loads of chat actually about the Friday night game, which was the, obviously, Manchester derby, and just the timing of it and how perfect it was. Because, like, from my side, we just, like, settled in front of the TV, me and my wife with, like, a curry, and it was just dead nice because it was like, you can't do that on a Sunday afternoon. Sometimes you've got things going on. So it was really awesome.
It's really nice. I will say it was a little harder over here because it was 2 p.m. on a Friday, but it was still really nice to have them spaced out. Could watch one game a day. Didn't have to choose between 3 that are happening at the same time. More soccer for everybody, and that makes everybody happy.
Yes. So Brighton versus West Ham, which was on Wednesday, and it ended 1-0 to Brighton. Again, more despair for West Ham. Like, what did you make of it?
It was kind of a crazy game. There were a lot of opportunities on both sides and some crazy defensive stops on both ends as well. At the end of the day, though, the end result is that West Ham are still sitting in a narrow 11th place, just ahead of Bristol City. And after Bristol City's loss to Chelsea, West Ham remains 2 points ahead with 1 game in hand. And unfortunately, that was kind of the takeaway from this game. There's no more head-to-head matchups between the two, between Bristol City and West Ham. So it's really going to come down to how each side play out their remaining games. But at the end of the day, that was a big takeaway from this game. West Ham still sliding.
For me, the saddest part about all of this is West Ham didn't need to be in this situation. They're in this situation because they've had a lot of mix-ups and upsets within camp by letting a lot of players go, changing the coaching staff. And now they're suffering as a result of it, as a direct result of that. And that's what happens essentially when you do that. So it really honestly wouldn't surprise me. And I'm shocked to say this now, mid-February, we could be in a situation where Bristol aren't the ones going down at the end of the season. And 3-4 weeks ago, that to me wouldn't have been possible. And I don't think the Chelsea game is a reflection of that. But Bristol City are, they're not the team they were 6 weeks ago. They're just simply not. And West Ham are not the team that they were at the beginning of this season. So time will tell.
Couldn't agree more.
Time will tell.
So Bristol City, you mentioned, lost crushing 5-0 to Chelsea on Sunday. Chelsea, speaking of Chelsea, also played Arsenal on Wednesday. We had all of these games really spaced out. So 2 big wins for Chelsea. What do you make of those 2 big wins after coming off of a loss, actually?
I think the Chelsea versus Bristol game, the opening goal against just emphasised one of the big things in the WSL this season, which is defending set pieces. And you just cannot let Chelsea in like that in the sort of opening minutes of the game. From what I recall, that there was only about 10-15 minutes gone when Fran Kirby scored front post of the corner. You never want that to happen against Chelsea. So Chelsea will always as well. You said in the last podcast, Chelsea are going to come out next week, and I feel sorry for whoever they're going to play against. We hadn't actually looked at the fixtures, but sadly it was last place Bristol City. And my God, didn't we know it? They were just electric, and it was the usual suspects.
Well, they actually came out against Arsenal first, and then
of course,
and then also destroyed Bristol City. So really 2 decisive wins for Chelsea against a team that was potentially a contender, at least for the Champions League, and then against a team that frankly has been really showing up strong for the past few weeks. So these were 2 decisive results for Chelsea, absolutely, after the loss, and they really showed what they're made of.
Arsenal, massively, massively disappointed. There's been a lot of drama on social media this week about Arsenal and how fans are feeling and what fans want. And I saw a bit of a debate opening up from Susie Rack, who's the Guardian writer for women's football, but also is a lifelong Arsenal fan. And I think that she's just trying to give clarity on what fans actually want, because for her, this isn't that she's not pointing to the transfers that they've made in and out, because she's saying that they've actually been quite decent transfers. Yeah, we're not buying Pernille Harders and Sam Kerrs for £300,000 or whatever, but we are making really good, decent signings that should make us a top 3 side.
Absolutely.
Where she feels,
namely Caitlin Ford, for example.
Oh my God, hell yeah. She feels like, and a lot of Arsenal fans feel like, where they're falling behind is facilities and forward movement in terms of the foundations of the women's game. So, nutritionists, training facilities, the amount that they're training, the detail that goes into their training. I think that's what Arsenal fans feel like they're missing. I don't know whether you would agree with that to a certain extent.
Absolutely. And I think this directly relates to what we're going to talk about once we get through all these WSL games, which is the fixture that was postponed, again, Arsenal versus Aston Villa. And you can't help but hear that this game is postponed again and understand that it has very deep roots. And those deep roots, I think, are exactly what you're talking about. It's not just an investment in a player. It's an investment in a team as a whole, comprehensively, from top to bottom, and that's across all areas. So I think that it's tied, and I'm excited to dive into that when we talk about when we talk about Arsenal versus Aston Villa.
Yeah, and on that, I just think there's another thing about, earlier you mentioned I'm going to do a Patreon episode, and I really want to discuss and explore how you break into the top 3 in the WSL now, and I think this is a major part of that, because you can see Arsenal are falling away and it's very clear why, but how do Everton and Reading get into that mix as well? And those are the 3 teams now. Like, I put Arsenal in the same category as the Evertons and Readings. They're both making efforts to maintain and sign players like Izzy Christiansen. They are, Reading has some really legendary players, and Arsenal are falling into that camp simply because of their lack of forward movement and investment in the actual team ethos and how the team is, the foundations of the team and how the team is treated, I guess.
We will jump into the postponement in a moment.
Yes.
Before we do, I'm obligated to, really, because I don't really want to, but I am obligated to bring up the Manchester City versus Manchester United.
Here we go. No, can I just say, first of all, as a lifelong Newcastle United football fan, I am not into gloating. I'm really not, because...
Oh, shut up. You posted something on Twitter. Helen grabbed the...
little joke.
For those who didn't see, Helen grabbed a little snippet of our episode 5 where we were talking about City versus United, and I was claiming that it was going to be a great game, and that when United beats City, we can come back next week and I'll replay the clip for Helen, and I might have gotten a little over confident, if you will. Don't sit there and say that you don't like to gloat when you gloated publicly on social media.
Here we go. At the end of the day, these things always come back to bite me in the ass, because I'm always saying shit that never comes into fruition. So for once in my life, can you just give me this?
Oh,
for God's sake. So, yeah, City won 3-0 against Manchester United at home. Lucy Bronze scored the opener, which is kind of a rarity for Lucy. She's not... But I would like to come on to that, actually. Lauren Hemp scored the second goal. She's an absolute diamond. 2 in a row now. And of course, just to reiterate, www.justgiving.com/we-are-Foudies if you want to win a Lauren Hemp signed jersey. That competition is ending in like 15 days, but give money to the amazing East Anglia Children's Hospital. So that's a huge opportunity. And Lauren Hemp is scoring loads of goals, which is just a really great way of me promoting that. And then in the 84th minute, sealed by a Caroline Weir potential goal of the season.
What a great goal. It was just, even sitting there rooting for United, I saw that and I was like, wow, you really have to give it up to her. What a season she's having as well, in a squad where there are so many names that stand out. And I think that sometimes the credit that she gets isn't enough. It almost falls by the wayside, as opposed, given all the big names she's up against, Lucy Bronze, Sam Mewis, et cetera, et cetera. She's having a great season. She's a key part of their offense. And this goal was an absolute beauty. And so at the end of the day, City came away 3-0. And this is a 2-team race for the title. And that's it. Chelsea, Manchester City. Set your calendars for April 25th. That is when they will play each other head to head.
What I will say, I feel like Manchester City were not in the same league as Chelsea at the beginning of this season. But I feel like Manchester City have really finally started to click as a team as we've entered the last 3 or 4 weeks. And it's emphasised by the fact they've lost probably their best player of the season, Sam Mewis, to injury.
Yeah. City really has evolved throughout the season, and I think that when we all saw Sam Mewis was going to be staying in the U.S. for U.S. Women's National Team camp, I think that the thought was, how will this negatively impact City? Not if it will, just how will it? Yeah. And it truly hasn't. So what has clicked for City? What has allowed them to take this next step and essentially move to the next level? Because they were not playing like the top team that they are playing like right now.
I think for me, one of the big things that you've got to respect is like the time for a manager to bed in. And like, I'm saying this as somebody, if you go back and listen to what I said back at the beginning of the season, I was going, how much longer do we give Gareth Taylor? And I was the first person to be going, you can't, how long do we give him it? You know, we're expecting world-class things from a world-class team. What's going on? But I kind of take that all back. You do have to give, especially when you've replaced half the entire squad. The first team, you know, starting 11 are like brand new players. You've got to give that time to bed in. One thing that I think really works for them is the width.
That makes sense, and I can speak to this from a United perspective as well, which is Manchester United were playing defense in the way that they were completely shutting down the middle of the field for City. They had somebody on Kira Walsh 100% of the time as to not allow her to be the distributor for City. So essentially what Manchester United was doing was saying, we're going to force City to play through the outsides, and we're going to completely shut down the middle of the pitch. And they did, and City just expanded, pushed their outside backs as far wide as possible, and were able to use the sidelines because United was not giving them the center of the field, and that's what happened.
So they were like, fine, don't give us the center of the field. We'll just utilize like some of the best, you know, wing players that we've got in the WSL.
From a United perspective, I think it was hard to watch because you do feel like the team has slipped a little bit in quality since the beginning of the season, and just momentum wise is really not carrying like they were earlier. I think that the loss of Tobin Heath, frankly, is a really big deal.
Psychologically as well, right?
Absolutely, in every single way. And I think everybody knew how big of an impact Tobin Heath was having on the team. But frankly, even as somebody who knew that, it took losing Tobin Heath to see really how big of a difference a player like that makes and how great she is. So quite frankly, I think that that's the biggest loss. Obviously, losing Leah Galton in the middle of the game was devastating. She's been absolutely fantastic for United, and it's never fun to see somebody have to leave the pitch with an injury. And then Hayley Ladd getting a yellow early on and having to come out early in the second half because she almost got a second yellow. Maybe it should have been one. Debatable. It doesn't really matter. That was a big loss as well. Hayley Ladd has been one of the most consistent players, I think, on United.
Agreed.
And then to add on, I think, you know, Ella Toone, who has been able to really step up a lot and fill some of the shoes that Tobin Heath has left. She did not have her best game. And all of those combined, it just led to a disappointing performance overall for United. And I think that this international break will really suit them well.
I think that we all have to remember a little bit, though, as well. Let's put this in perspective. This is a team that in 2018, it launched in 2018 and went straight into the Women's Championship, won the Women's Championship, and then came up for the 2019-2020 season. This is their second season at the top tier of football of all time.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, you never want to settle for just being in the mix, but seeing as their team is still pretty brand new, this is a fantastic result, and at the end of the day, a fantastic start, because that's what it is. Yeah, this definitely is a start. So moving into Reading versus Everton, I know that we mentioned earlier that we are going to be putting out a Patreon where we're going to dive a lot deeper into not only that game, but into what the future of both of these clubs are. Take a listen to that if you want to hear more in depth about that. Really what we saw was a middle of the table clash that came out as a 1-1 draw. These two teams sit in 5th and 6th place. They are locked at 19 points. The only difference is that Everton has 2 games in hand. So we will speak a lot more on the Patreon about what these teams really need to do to become title contenders.
Hell yeah, head over to patreon.com/The Woso Show. That's patreon.com/The Woso Show.
That was like an advertisement. I know.
That. I just was like, spell it out to you, bitches.
Yeah. All right, quickly diving back into our final WSL piece that we have to speak about. We mentioned this earlier about Arsenal versus Aston Villa. This game got postponed again. Just to be clear, this game was postponed, I believe, 2 weeks ago. They were set to play it this weekend, and then it got postponed again because of weather. So I think that I'm just going to come out and say I saw this and was obscenely frustrated. I don't really know where to start, but I will say that if you're sick of listening to us talk about this, I get it. we're sick of talking about it. But I do think it's very important for us to continue to shed light on every time, because I don't want this to be something that's normalized. I don't want everybody to walk away from the day being like, yeah, well, that game got postponed, but whatever. That's not normal, and it shouldn't be normal. And it's happening in the women's league, and it's not happening in the men's league. And that is why it should not be normalized.
Completely with you. The Bank Stadium, yet again, having issues. That's Aston Villa's home ground with a frozen pitch. First thing I'll say that I think, just as a human being living in the UK, obviously year on year we have terrible weather conditions. There are weather warnings that come out all the time, and you just feel like you know that you're potentially going to have a frozen pitch. If that's 60% going to happen, 70%, then I'm like, you know, I'm no gambler, but let's like just assume that that's probably going to end in a postponement, you know? And
essentially what you're saying is that there needs to be preventative measures put in place. Like, why is there not forward planning to say that if this pitch can't be played on, we have a backup pitch, or we have 2 backup pitches? It's seemingly, even if it is a big effort, but it's seemingly little effort for clubs to just be able to find another way for this game to be played. And the fact that there isn't even energy put into finding a different field, a different stadium for these women to play on, makes me as a fan feel like the people who are making these decisions just simply don't care, and that there's not an investment in this game or the league because it's not important enough. And that's the message that it sends to the fans. And frankly, I would not be surprised if that was the message it was sending to the players, who might also be incredibly frustrated by this.
So on the other side, just because I like to have a bit of yin and yang in the show, I want to read a tweet from Beth Fisher, who is a sports reporter, ex-hockey player, and also partner of Anita Asante, who is an Aston Villa player. And I'd like to caveat, first of all, I actually really like Beth Fisher. In fact, I adore her. I think she's an absolute icon. And this is just an opinion that she has that I just want to present as an opposing opinion, not a dig at all. Seriously, do people think frozen pitches only happen in the women's game? It's called the weather hun, and it doesn't see gender, it just sees grass. Really, for me, a really interesting perspective, because I'm assuming that she's spoken to her partner who's like, oh, I'm coming home, babe, because the game's been cancelled or whatever. And so she's had that chat. Am I making sense here? So she's gathered an opinion.
She's spoken to her partner who plays for Aston Villa.
Yeah, so who's obviously been like, I'm coming home and this is how I feel about it. And they've not taken it personally, or they're not hurt by it. Someone's replied and said, there's something called having a contingency plan in place. All the signs were there 2 days ago. And Beth replied, I hope you're messaging every single men's club with the same idea of contingency planning, and then an eye roll emoji. And what she means by that is the second tier of men's football, a lot of games were cancelled this weekend, just gone.
But that's the second tier.
And then that's exactly what a lot of people have said. So someone said, sure, but the point is elite men rarely have matches postponed because of the weather. I think we should expect the same for elite women, an ambition that's worth making a fuss about. And she's replied, that's utter nonsense. Check out the championship fixtures for the last couple of weeks. She said, no, I'm talking about the elite. The very best elite men don't routinely have fixtures postponed because of the weather. Elite female players, i.e. World Cup and European Championship players, should rightly expect the same, no? And she said, Beth replied, in an ideal world, it would be absolutely fantastic if women's sides played in multi-million pound facilities of their own, but they don't. And the fact people are going in on the club for poor management, etc., is really annoying. This game should have been played in January, remember? And I think that maybe she's protecting Aston Villa and she's being like, stop picking on Aston Villa. But I don't think that that's what the fans are frustrated about.
I would argue, obviously, what Beth is saying is correct. Weather does not pick between genders, but it is really hard to ignore the facts of, and I don't have them in front of me, but you could pull up how many fixtures have been canceled and postponed just this season in the WSL, and it definitely exceeds 3. That's all I need to know, because then you look up how many fixtures were canceled because of weather in all of the English Premier League within the past 5 years, and if what I read was correct, there were 2, one in 2014, which wasn't in the last 5 years, and one in 2020. So at that point, you have to say, within those years, there had to be a moment where weather was an issue. Let me just assume that that's something that happened. I hear what she's saying, but I think that there are larger issues, and nobody is asking for the organization to just pick up the women up and move them to the men's field or anything like that. If that's something that works, do it.
Yeah.
All they're asking for is a contingency plan so that the game can get played.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that that's a really low bar to set if that's all you're asking for.
A lot of people have been talking about why they couldn't do it at St. George's, and the argument that Beth Fisher's given is St. George's being the England camp, by the way, like the pictures are perfect, and obviously it's behind closed doors and it's all security and stuff, and it wouldn't take much for that to happen. St. George's also happens to be not very far from Aston Villa, so they would have been able to go up the motorway and play it there. But Beth Fisher's made the point, why would Villa want to play away from home? Like, they want to play at their home ground. They want to make Arsenal go in the away changing rooms. They want it to be on their plot of land. You know, that benefits them, and I respect that also. But then I think the most important thing is that we get the games happening when the games are due to happen. I can understand why everybody's frustrated, and I can understand all perspectives on it, and I just hope that they start finding a way to deal with it maybe by the 2021-22 season, is all I can say.
Certainly. Should we go around the world? Helen, do you want to take the first one, or do you want me to use my
use your Spanish hand.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll go around the world, starting with the Spanish Primera División. Barcelona is truly running away with the title as they sit in first place with 48 points. Levante sit just below them in second place with 41 points, but after losing to Barcelona 3-0 2 weeks ago, they stand very little chance of catching up before the end of the season. Barcelona is 16-0-0,
Wow.
0-0. I know O is a letter, but it's weird to say it with the zeros. Essentially, they've won 16 games. They have not tied and they have not lost. They have a goal differential of plus 81 with 84 goals for and only 3 goals against the entire season, which is mind-blowing. The remainder of the table below Barcelona is actually very competitive, with 3 teams, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, and Madrid CFF, locked at 38 points. Barcelona also won another trophy this week. Have to shout that out. Check out the 10-minute news segment for Helen to tell you more about that.
Barcelona, for me, could win the Champions League this year. Just saying.
Big time.
Over in the Division 1 Féminine in France, speaking of other people that could win the Champions League this season, only one game to report from the French First Division, as they've actually been on a break this weekend. FF beat Dijon 1-0 on Saturday. Rosa Lord Borgella, the Hayatan forward, caught the keeper out of position, chipped her from inside the 18-yard box in the 57th minute to put Issy up 1-0. Ella Kabachi got her second yellow card in the 82nd minute to send her off with a red card. Honestly, that was not deserving of a second yellow, in our opinion. She was clearly trying to get out of the way. She didn't want to get tangled up in that tackle.
So moving over to Mexico, La Liga MX Femenil. We've mentioned this league before because it is hot. This league we've been calling out, like I mentioned, and it is because there is a very competitive race at the top of the table. Definitely worth following. Unam and Atlas sit locked at 19 points in first. They both have a 6-1-0 record. Guadalajara and Monterrey sit just below them with 16 and 15 points respectively, after Monterrey dropped their Sunday match to the 14th place Juarez in a crushing 4-3 defeat. So lots of goals in that game, yeah.
Whoa, that is really hot things up. Over in Italy, in the Serie A, it's a 2-team battle between Juventus and Milan. Juventus sit in first place with 39 points, and Milan is just behind them with 36 points. They will face each other very soon on March the 7th, so we will hopefully try and find some links so people can watch that live. There were no league games this weekend, but we did see one Italian Women's Cup match that featured Juve putting Empoli away in a crushing 5-0 defeat. Again, I cover this Women's Cup matches across in the 10-minute news segment because there were some really good games in those quarterfinals.
So check out News in 10. All right, moving on to international news, which I'm very excited about because we've got some international games coming up, and I am buzzing.
Of course you are.
My ladies are back. They're back.
Oh, yeah. Guess
so we've got
back,
a few things. Back again. We've got a few things to talk about. First, I want to touch on She Believes Cup because it starts this week.
Yes.
The first game is this coming Thursday, February 18th. There are actually 2 games this coming Thursday. It'll kick off with Brazil versus Argentina. For those who are interested, that's going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 9 p.m. British time. And then after that, the U.S. plays Canada, 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 12 a.m. British time. So sorry for everybody in the UK.
So gutting.
Those are some great matchups to kick it off with, though. Brazil versus Argentina. I mean, come on. One of the more classic rivalries in the history of the world. And then U.S. versus Canada. These teams know each other so well. It's always a very physical game, so really excited for that one. There will be more games that coming Sunday the 21st, and then the following Wednesday the 24th. I think it's important to touch on these and frankly to watch these, because these games are extremely important as we head into the Olympics. These are no longer friendlies that teams can try on their squads with. These matter now. This is when these teams need to be really getting into form, and they need to be finding their flow and their footing. When you look at their schedules, they don't have other games scheduled between now and the Olympics, and it is frankly very hard to schedule because of COVID. So these games are extremely important and will be very fun to watch.
Can I ask you something that, like, I'm not expecting stats because I'm massively putting you on the spot here. What is the US versus Canada, like, history look like? You know, have there been any sort of major upsets from a US perspective? Because I know Canada are a really good team. Like, you only have to look at their captain to know that they have some world-class players. So, you know, is there a potential that this game could be an upset?
The history of it that I think is shared publicly from the players on the U.S. women's national team are that it's always an extremely physical game. I think we can expect a really physical game. These games usually get a little chippy and intense, and I think with a rivalry like that, frankly, you can expect anything to happen. So it's very possible that it could be an upset.
Amazing. Canada are, like, in world football, men's and women's football, Canada are really kind of coming through. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I might actually stay up till 12 a.m. to watch that bad boy.
If you do, let me know. We can have a little mimosa, babe.
Oh my God, we actually can this time. I love it. We can have mimosas. So PSG have denied the release of Alana Cook for the US women's national team camp. And Casey Kruger replaces her. That's massive, right?
That's huge. It absolutely hurts Cook's chances at making the Olympic roster, and you wonder if she knew this was going to happen, if she would have still gone to PSG, and you can't help but wonder that. So somebody posed a question to us on social that I think is really interesting to bring up. Frankly, with this having happened, do you think that this will have an impact on U.S. players going abroad in the future? Will it deter them at all, knowing that this is a possibility?
For me, like, PSG are fighting for the title at the moment, and you and I have spoken about it week after week after week, because I believe the PSG-Lyon game is coming up, and that's essentially the title decider in the French league. If PSG beat Lyon and go on to win the title, this is a huge coup. Like, that is a massive, massive deal. So from a player perspective, I imagine Alana Cook wanted to stay with PSG. I would. I know that playing for the US women's national team is huge, and in the Olympics is gargantuous, if that's too much of a word, I don't know. And if she was weighing up, I imagine the Olympics were more important to her than winning the league title. However, is the She Believes Cup more important? Probably not. And should the US women's national team take that into account, and we go and look at the important stuff that she's doing in a PSG shirt right now? And, you know, if we want to watch how she's doing and see if she's worthy of a you know, Stars and Stripes jersey, let's just watch her play that Lyon game in a few weeks' time, which is a cup final, essentially, like, of importance.
I mean, you're not wrong, but also at the end of the day, if you're a coach, you're not going to put somebody on a team just based on how they've played with another team. You know, you have to see how they play on your team, in your squad, in your formation, with other players on your team, and it's unfortunate, but that's definitely the reality of it. But I hear what you're saying.
It's the reality of it for the USA. It's like 100% not the reality in world football. Like, players play for the US women's national team as their core club, as it were, and don't necessarily go off to play for the Lyons of this world or the PSGs of this world as a priority. And I respect that as well.
It's definitely a distinction, and it's a very interesting one.
I think you and I could do a bloody 10-hour episode on the wrongs and rights of it, because I think that you're right, it works for this women's national team. But I feel so sad for this young player who's moved her entire life to France, is winning the division right now with a team that were never supposed to win this division, and it might hinder her chances of making it into the world's best team. That's how I see it. Well, I guess time will tell, won't it?
Yeah. Well, moving from the US to England, there is a friendly coming up. In it, guess what? It's not an intra-squad friendly.
Oh my God, I was so delighted. I was doing a lot of jokey tweets that day.
So many. There were some good ones. England versus Northern Ireland will be played next Tuesday, February 23rd. So book your calendars, people.
Yeah, a couple of shocks. One massive thing just to that I think everybody's kind of a bit bowled over by. Obviously, it's Hegarese's first squad selection, and she only selected 20 players. And Sarah and I can tell you how difficult it is to whittle a squad down to 20 players.
Yeah, my goodness. Also, for the we're getting into that for a moment. We put 2 squads out. We're going to do this quickly. We put 2 squads out each on socials. The first was a U.S. women's national team roster. So this was an 18-person roster that we were taking to the Olympics. That was less controversial than the England squads that we put out, which I very much have to specify, everybody. That was a starting 11, not a full squad. So there were, and it was, I feel like I'm defending myself now. So that was a starting 11. There were a lot of people that might have been not on the field, but sitting right there on the bench, ready to go in. And I think the only call out that I really do want to address is the Fran Kirby call out. Yeah, we made those before she just went off. And if I was able to change it, I would put her in.
So would I.
But thank you to everybody who engaged and commented on those. It was so much fun to read what everybody was thinking and saying. Should we reveal really quickly whose was whose?
Yes, I don't remember.
I'm going to pull it up. All right, so we are going to quickly reveal whose was whose, okay. And if you want to go back and look and see which person you agree with more, that will be very fun. So the first one we put out was U.S. Women's National Team 18 squad roster that we would be taking to the Olympics. We had Squad A and Squad B. Squad A was mine. I think Squad A won for the record. It had more votes.
I think it did.
And Squad B was Helen's.
Yeah.
And then we put out our Team GB starting 11. There was a red squad and a blue squad. The red squad was Helen's and the blue squad was mine. I think that this was a big toss-up, frankly. I think your squad might have gotten a few more votes.
I think I edged it, but
I think you did.
There were some really angry people with the England squad, so maybe we shouldn't talk about it too much.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Basically, we loved everybody's comments. I read all of the comments, and everybody's comment, I was like, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true too.
And then there's a lot of people that I was pissing off when they were saying like, where's Sophie Ingle? And I was like, probably at home having a cup of tea, darling.
Yeah.
I don't know. The one big shock for me for the February 23rd England versus Northern Ireland camp game is that Beth Mead did not make the cut. And the absolute shout, when you think to the Ashlyn Harris missing out, and they were so sensitive about why she wasn't going, it's just been, they gave this really sort of sensitive answer. Hegaresa literally was like, her squad report's not very good. And I was like, whoa. They were really, really bold in your silent sneezing is not helping matters. I just felt like that was really a bold statement about Beth Mead saying, Beth Mead, her squad report hasn't been very good. And especially then sort of including Jill Scott, who's played 2 fixtures this season for Manchester City. It just doesn't, for me, justify why Beth Mead wouldn't make the cut. And supposedly Beth Mead is one of the most likeable characters, so I can't think of it being anything other than the fact that she just doesn't rate her right now. I think time will tell. And obviously we've got Serena Weigman coming in after the Olympics, so, we shall see what happens there. But England versus Northern Ireland, go check it out on Tuesday.
Excited, really excited. Lots of international games now.
Buzzing. So next week will be a lot of chatting about those international games, I imagine.
Yeah, because there will also be no fixtures in the WSL next week. So I think we'll do pretty much a full episode on the international game, which I'm really excited for.
And maybe some touching on if there are any games over in Europe, we'll touch on them as well. But I'm not sure that there will be fixtures. So thanks so much for listening, guys. Don't forget to check out our Patreon and our social media at The Woso Show. I've been Helen.
I've been Sarah.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.